Live from Houston, Texas. Got Mix News presents The Mix Report, the podcast where you can stay in the mix with sports and entertainment news.
Welcome, folks. You're tuning in to The Mix Report Special Edition. March Madness. $1 million bracket. The Mix Report. Folks, if after what we show you tonight on this episode, you need to take this to the nearest place where you can receive a return, because you can't go wrong with the Mix Report Tournament Bracket 2024. We're going to unveil our picks, okay? The Mix Report $1 Million Bracket Breakdown. I'm your host, T-Mix. We're excited to dive deep into the world of NCAA basketball. Okay, folks, we're going to start with the men on the men's side in this episode. The stakes are high, okay? You got 64 teams fired up, thinking they have a chance to win the NCAA championship, okay? I want you to like, comment, and subscribe. I want you to get in the comments and you tell us who your favorite picks are, who you going with, who do you think's going to win it all. With our $1 million bracket on the line, every pick matters, okay? We've dived deep, we've analyzed, we've broken down, and we're ready to give you, the fans, the $1 million bracket. Today, we're going to dissect the bracket, analyze the matchups. We're going to give you the insider tips that you'll need to dominate your March Madness pool. Whether you're at work, whether you're on the court talking to friends, your bracket matters. Your pool matters. We're going to kick things off. We're going to get right into it. I know some of y'all will be very excited. We're sharing our screen today, folks. We're sharing our screen today. That's a reason to get excited, because when the screen is shared, things are happening. We're going to get into the number one seeds. We're going to get into teams to watch. We're going to talk about the underdogs, the dark horse, and so forth. I'm very excited about sharing my screen. Some people are scared to share the screen. I'm not. Once I share that screen, I feel like you all get real excited about it. Yep, it's going to get real exciting here, folks. It's going to get real exciting. Like I said, I'd like y'all to get in the comments, like, comment, and subscribe. And we want you to dive in. Don't be scared. Let us know who you're picking. And we're going to go from there, because the bottom line is your bracket is your bracket. It's what you believe. And we're going to start in the East, because that seems to be where the mustard's at. Okay? The mustard is in the East. Okay? The East Coast is where we're going right now. So walk with me, talk with me, freeze with me. It's really cold on the East Coast. UConn starting off number one. They're the number one seed coming into this bracket. Unbelievable season. They're not scared. Okay. When you got that target on your back and you're the number one seed, you got to bring your A game. And UConn right now, who we got in that matchup, we got UConn versus Stetson. Folks, it's not even close. UConn moves on. to the next round in our bracket, the Mix Report bracket. Okay, it's not rocket science, folks. Easy pick. Okay, easy call. We're going to go into the next matchup. We got FAU. Moving on, folks. Okay. Oh, some of y'all are looking at us like, what are we thinking? Okay. It's Florida, folks. It's simple. Florida versus the Midwest, Northwestern. We're going to roll with Florida because FAU, they got a lot of swagger. They got a lot of mojo, got a lot of moxie, and they're moving on to the next round. San Diego State versus UAB. Okay. Sunshine and rainbows out there in San Diego. And that sunshine is moving on to the next round in our bracket. Real simple, folks. They knocked UAB off. Next up, Auburn versus Yale. Pretty simple, straight to the point. Auburn knocks off Yale like it's nothing. Don't get upset. It's just our opinion. It's our bracket, folks. You have your bracket, we have ours, and so forth. BYU versus DeQuincy. Folks, we talked earlier about upsets. We talked earlier about spoiler alert. We talked earlier about the underdog, and this is our underdog matchup of the tournament. DeQuincy knocks off, upsets BYU with ease. Okay? You heard it here first, folks. DeQuincy knocks off BYU. Easy call. Number 6 versus number 11. Look, folks, everybody doesn't have this opportunity to get a chance to catch $1 million bracket. Okay, everybody doesn't get that opportunity, but here on the Mix Report, you get an opportunity. So if you're not writing these picks down, I don't know what you're thinking about. Illinois versus Morehead State. Easy call, folks. Number 3 versus number 14. Number 3, Illinois knocks off, bust Morehead State in the mouth. Okay, and there's nothing that they can do about it. Next up, Washington State versus Drake. And I'm not talking about the artists, folks. A lot of y'all getting caught up with the music, getting caught up with the hype. Look, Washington State moves on to the second round in our bracket. And bringing up the bottom tier of the bracket, Iowa State, number 2, versus number 15, South Dakota State. Easy call here, folks. Easy call. Iowa State moves on. That cleans up our East bracket. Okay? Real easy, folks. Real easy. The East is cleaned up. Anytime you have the East, you always got to venture back to the West. Okay? We're going to the West now. Teams out West in the West side of the bracket. Starting off, number one seed, North Carolina versus. Okay, look, we're not going to get into certain names. We can't pronounce this name, folks, and that's okay. If your school doesn't have a cool name, that's the reason you're going to get beat. If we can't pronounce your name here, that's a good chance you're going to probably get knocked off. And North Carolina moves right on to the next round just because we can't pronounce your name. Hey, it's cutthroat up here, folks. Next up, we got Mississippi State, number 8, versus Michigan State, number 9. Tail of the tape. It's real simple in this one. For us, you know, you're looking at the Mix Report cold, hard picks. Okay, cold, hard picks. Picks you can take straight to the bank. We don't know if you're going to have negative balance or not, but that's a whole nother story. Insufficient funds. Hey, we said you could take it to the bank. We don't know if you can cash it. All right. So Mississippi State versus Michigan State. Michigan State moves on. Okay, they got a whole lot of experience in playing in this NCAA tournament. St. Mary's versus Grand Canyon University. You know, Grand Canyon is one of those underdogs that just they're here, folks. They're here. Okay, but St. Mary's is in the way, and this is an easy call. St. Mary's moves on to the second round. Pretty simple call for us. You know, our experts, they've dived into this bracket and they've dissected it, and they have the $1 million bracket. Alabama moves on versus Charleston. Real easy call. Number 4 versus 13. They move right on to the next round. Clemson versus New Mexico. Clemson, this is a no-brainer. You got number 6 versus number 11. You got 6 and 11. You pick. It's not that hard. Okay, you got Clemson, the Tigers versus New Mexico. And you see who we went with. We went with the Tigers. Baylor versus Colgate. Now, I'm going to be honest, folks. I like the toothpaste. I really like the toothpaste. Colgate toothpaste, you can't go wrong, folks. But for the NCAA March Madness, toothpaste is not going to help you, folks. Toothpaste can't help you here. You got to put your shoes on, lace them up, jump out the gym, and they're not going to do it. Baylor's going to walk all over Colgate. Okay? But I still like the toothpaste. Dayton versus Nevada. Dayton versus Nevada. This is a real tight one, but this one can go down to the wire. But it's Dayton that knocks off Nevada with ease, folks. Okay, Dayton has a squad. You take a look at them. Arizona versus Long Beach State, folks. Shout out to Long Beach, the LBC, my hometown. Shout out to Snoop, Nate. Warren G. You got R.I.P. Nate Dogg, who's from there as well. You got OT Genesis. You got just so many legends that have walked through Long Beach. Shout out to my boy Wesley Stokes. Okay, he's played in this NCAA tournament before, and he's done his thing. Go ahead and look him up, folks. Some of y'all want to know who is Wesley Stokes. He's one of the best basketball players ever come out of the Long Beach area. But Wesley can't help y'all today, folks. Okay, Long Beach State, there's no upset here, folks. Arizona busts Long Beach in the mouth, and there's nothing Long Beach can do about it. So there's no upset here. Moving on to the other side of this bracket. On the other side of this bracket, we have the Midwest, folks. Chi-Town, Detroit, Ohio. It's going to be a barn burner. Some of these games are going to go down to the wire. And that's why we're here, folks, to give you an opportunity to make a good decision on your bracket. Tennessee versus St. Peter. Tennessee versus St. Peter. Easy call. Number 2 versus 15. Tennessee moves on. UT versus UVA. UT moves on. Creighton versus Akron. Folks, we're going with Creighton, folks. Okay, Creighton. I know they have a difficult name, but they move right on to the next round. Oregon Ducks versus South Carolina. Uniforms are not going to help you here, folks. Just because you have some of the coolest uniforms in college doesn't mean success. And Oregon's going to find that out. Phil Knight can't help you all on this one, folks. Kansas versus Samford. One of my favorite TV shows, Sanford and Son. That's not what we have here, folks. You know why? Because there's an M in Samford. And that's a real reason why they're not going to win. Kansas moves on with ease. Gonzaga versus McNeese. Shout out to Louisiana. McNeese. You can't go against Gonzaga, folks. The name is big. Gonzaga. That automatically gets them a bid into the next round. Utah State, number 8 versus number 9, TCU. This is a tight one. This was a hard to pick, but we're leaning more towards Utah State. They're very, very, very active, and I don't see anybody beating them in that game. Purdue versus Montana State. We're going to go on with Purdue. Moving on to the second round. We're going to roll right up here to down south, folks. Okay, we're going down south in this bracket. We're starting off with, we're going to just go from the top. Going to go number 1 seed. H-Town, folks. H-Town. They play Longwood, number 16, beatdown of the year. I got a real bad feeling Longwood is going to not know what they got themselves into after playing U of H. U of H moves on with ease. Nebraska versus A&M. Number 8, Nebraska versus number 9, A&M. Nebraska moves on. Wisconsin versus James Madison. Big game, James, folks. I know you're looking at me. You want to know, what am I thinking? No, what are you thinking? Have you looked at James Madison? You need to go look at some of their highlights, folks. James Madison knocks off Wisconsin. Okay, that's who we're going with. Remember, $1 million brackets. Get in the comments and you tell us who you got, because this is who we got. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share with friends. If you don't like our bracket, tell us why. You tell us who's going to win it. But right now, we're going with James Madison versus Wisconsin into the second round. Duke versus Vermont. We're going to go with those Duke Blue Devils. They're going to knock off Vermont with ease. Texas Tech versus North Carolina State. Tech moves on, folks. Kentucky versus Oakland. Okay, folks. E40 too short. None of those folks can help you. Yuck mouth. They can't help you, folks, win a basketball game. You got to bring your A game. It's not what's playing in the stereo. Okay? It's what you're doing on the court. And Kentucky's going to bring it to Oakland on the court. Florida versus Boise. Easy call, folks. Florida moves on. Last but not least, Marquette, number 2 versus number 15, Western Kentucky. And you see it. You see it. We got Marquette moving on to the second round. We're going to go ahead and start. We're going to go back to the east. Now we're in the second round. We're in the round of 32 teams. We've eliminated 64. We started with 64. Now we're down to 32. When you can pick in the 32, you're getting down to the nitty-gritty. And right now, UConn is challenging FAU in our bracket, number 1 versus number 8. Easy call. We got UConn moving on to the Sweet 16. We got San Diego State versus Auburn, number 5 versus number 4. We picked Auburn to move on to the next round. UConn, number 1, UConn. I'm sorry, folks. UConn versus Auburn is moved on. They're in part of that Sweet 16. We're going to go DeQuincy versus Illinois. Remember, I told you I like that name, DeQuincy. They're going against Illinois in the second round, number 3 versus 11. Number 3 busts number 11 in the mouth. There's nothing they can do about it. They can't survive the beatdown that's going to happen. Iowa State versus Washington State. Number 2 versus number 7. This is going to be a close one, but Iowa State ultimately moves on to the Sweet 16 out of the East bracket. The West, part of the 32, we got North Carolina versus Michigan State. Hey, it's something about that Carolina blue. That blue, it's something about that blue, folks. And Carolina's going to move on. They'll be in the Sweet 16 after they knock off Michigan State. St. Mary's versus Alabama, folks. This one's going to be a tight one, believe it or not. We got St. Mary's. They're not playing, folks. They're for real. Some of y'all are looking for a sleeper. You need to look at St. Mary's and what they got. St. Mary's is not afraid. They're not scared, and they're ready for war. So St. Mary's against Alabama, you go ahead and lock in St. Mary's for that upset. Number 6, Clemson versus number 3, Baylor. We picked Baylor in this one, folks. The Baylor Bears are something else. They're really, really establishing a tremendous program there. They're one to watch. And last but not least, in the West bracket, Arizona versus Dayton. Dayton luck just ran out, so the Arizona Wildcats have moved on to the Sweet 16 out of the West. And now we're going to go ahead and move in to the Midwest part of the bracket. Starting from the bottom, now we're here, folks. Tennessee versus Texas. We picked Tennessee to move on. I love the burnt orange. Hook 'em. Shout out to Steve Sarkisian and the football program over there. They're doing a great job there. But Texas basketball, I don't know if they're ready for Tennessee this year. Creighton versus South Carolina. Creighton's our sleeper, folks. We're going with Creighton once again to move on to the Sweet 16. Kansas versus Gonzaga. Gonzaga moves on easy, folks. They beat Kansas in a barn burner. It's going to be a close one. But we're going with Kansas. Utah State versus Purdue. No upset here, folks. Purdue walks all over Utah State. To move on to the Sweet 16. We're going to go up down south, find out what time it is down south. In a south region of the bracket, Marquette versus Florida. And, folks, the water can't help you in this one. Okay, Marquette has ball players. Shout out to William Gates. Okay, Hoop Dreams, you look it up. One of the greatest sports documentaries ever made as far as basketball. But ultimately, they move on in our bracket versus Kentucky. Yeah, we just told you, folks. Kentucky versus Texas Tech. We're moving right on. Kentucky's going to easily win that one. It's a no call. James Madison against the Duke Blue Devils. Folks, we're not playing. This is our sleeper. James Madison, number 12 versus number 4, knocks off the Duke Blue Devils with ease. Okay? Don't get mad. It's just life. You heard it here first. James Madison knocks off the Duke Blue Devils with ease. Houston versus Nebraska. Houston moves on in our bracket. We're down to the Sweet 16. We're down to when you're making Kool-Aid, this is the part where you have the sugar ready to go and you have the packets ready to go. You got them unpacked, and all you're waiting to do is pour it in. This is where we're at. We're in the Sweet 16 part of our bracket. Check out who we have left. We in the East, we got UConn versus Auburn. Okay, UConn beats Auburn is what we got. Okay, UConn knocks off Auburn in the Sweet 16. Illinois versus Iowa State. Illinois knocks off number 2 Iowa State. Illinois is built for basketball, folks. They've been there before, and they're not scared. While we're looking at the South bracket, we're just going to go ahead and start over there and see what the South Sweet 16 looks like. We got Houston University versus James Madison. And James Madison's luck ran out. It's going to run out here, folks. The story is nice. They're the underdog, but the buck stops here with U of H with a knockoff. I believe it's going to be a close ball game, but Houston, the coach they have is tremendous. He's doing a great job there. And they move on, folks. Moseying right on along. We have Kentucky versus Marquette. Easy call here. Kentucky knocks off Marquette and moves on into our final four. I'm sorry. They move on to our final rounds. It's not the final four. I guess you could say our Elite Eight, if you want to call it that. But, yeah, let's find out what the West and the Midwest is looking like. We got North Carolina versus St. Mary's. Excuse me. North Carolina folks bully St. Mary's. St. Mary's competes at a high level. And it just kind of, they're a great feel-good story, but they don't get it done in this one against North Carolina, the Tar Heels. Baylor versus Arizona. We're going with Arizona in this one. Something about a team and pedigree being accustomed to being in the March Madness. Arizona has a lot of experience there. They've won championships in the past. So we're going to go ahead and go with Arizona. Shout out to AZ. That pretty much sums up our West bracket for the teams that slide into the Elite Eight. Tennessee versus Creighton, folks. That's another one. Creighton's our underdog. And they don't have enough, folks. Okay, they just don't have enough to compete against Tennessee. Tennessee moves on in our bracket. So we got Tennessee versus Purdue, Arizona versus North Carolina. And here we have Kentucky versus Marquette. And we already talked about Kentucky moving on to battle U of H. Illinois versus Iowa State. Illinois moves on, folks. They go to battle UConn. So this is our bracket getting really down to the nitty gritty. And we're going this is our Elite Eight. This is our Final Four. Look, I want you to see it, folks. We got UConn. We got North Carolina. Both number ones make it in our bracket. From the East and the West. From the Midwest and the South. This might be the first time in history that this has ever been called. That's why we have the $1 million bracket, because we have all four number one teams in the Final Four for the first time ever. I believe. Don't quote me on it. But Houston against Purdue, UConn versus North Carolina, and we got our final two teams. You see it? UConn number 1 versus Houston number 1. Number 1 versus number 1. But guess what, folks? There can only be one winner. And UConn against Houston is a amazing final matchup. But you see who we got for the champion. Our champion is the University of Houston, folks. And I'm glad some of y'all got a chance to tune in to our bracket, got a chance to check it out and see where we're going, which way we were headed. I'm glad that y'all joined us for our show this evening. And what we want you to understand is this is our bracket. These are our picks. We did our own research. We trusted our own instincts. Most importantly, we had fun. March Madness is all about the thrill of the game. Whether you win or lose, it's all about the experience. That wraps us up for our special edition of March Madness, the Mix Report, $1 Million Bracket Breakdown 2024. I want to thank y'all for listening and tuning in. Make sure you submit your brackets, whether it's at work with your pool or whether it's online. And always remember, you've just got mixed.
Live from Houston, Texas. Got Mix News presents The Mix Report, the podcast where you can stay in the mix with sports and entertainment news.